Hello everybody! It has been a while since we've done a vlog on the channel, and because we're at the end of the year, December's about to start, now is the perfect time to talk about the channel and all of the changes that I want to make to it for 2019. I've got a lot of ideas, I've got a lot of things I want to talk about, so we're just going to jump right in with the first thing, which is that real soon here, within the next month, I am going to be officially announcing and kind of soft releasing my game that I've been working on. That news may come as a surprise to most of you, but if you're a patron of ours or you have been a patron of ours in the recent past, then you know that I've been working on this game for about a year and a half. You see, I'm a very passionate gamer. I love games. I love video games. I love tabletop games. I love all kinds of games. And I also have a passion for game design. In fact, when I graduated high school, I moved down to Florida from California to go to Full Sail University to learn game design. That didn't end up working out for me at the time, but that never really got rid of my passion. Even when I was a kid and I was playing things like Warcraft 3 and StarCraft, I was in the map editors messing around, learning scripting, and just doing fun things as far as level design because I really enjoyed that. And in recent years, when I got into playing tabletop RPGs like D&D, what I found was that I could feed that game designer part of me by just doing basic dungeon master stuff, making my own campaign and creating battle maps and creating story and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed that, and it fed that flame in me once again. So for the last year and a half, I have been working on my very own cyberpunk tabletop RPG. I like cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is my favorite genre. Don't get me wrong, fantasy is fun, in the background, like I'm playing World of Warcraft. Fantasy is awesome. I love fantasy. Even playing D&D is a lot of fun to me. I really do enjoy it. But if I had to pick a favorite genre, it would be cyberpunk. I love the Blade Runners. I love the Matrixes. I love these kind of games because they feed into one of my other passions, which is philosophy. And cyberpunk tends to be a very philosophical genre. There's a lot of questions as to what is the meaning of life, what is existence in those genres in cyberpunk, and I really like that. So I decided, as much as I love D&D, I wanted to make a cyberpunk game, one in which is set in the future where you have, crazy weapons and augmentations and flying cars and stuff like that, because I think that is really freaking cool. That is what calls to me. And on top of that, I also really wanted to do a cyberpunk game because the ones that are out there for tabletop stuff, I find rather obtuse and the rules really hard to teach and learn, which means if I wanted to play something like Cyberpunk, which is an actual tabletop game, or Shadowrun, and I wanted to teach my friends how to play that, you're having to teach them a rather complex system with weird dice systems that isn't quite as easy to learn as something like Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and it makes it really hard to have people to play with. So for me, I am essentially making the game that I want to play. I want to play a cyberpunk game. I want my friends to come and play it. So I have decided, over the last year that I've been working on this cyberpunk game, and I've decided to make it a easy to learn game with a massive amount of customization and depth. So I'm just going to kind of go over the idea of the game real quick to you guys, and then I'm going to save the, all the nitty-gritty details for the actual announcement when I do that. But first and foremost, I want to say that my cyberpunk game is a living RPG. And what I mean by that is this is not a game that I'm going to put out like a book, right? So Dungeons & Dragons, they put out 5th edition D&D, and they have the core rulebook, they have the player's handbook, and then they have the monster manual. Those books are finite things. They are a piece of literature that has the rules in them. Once that is out in the wild, that is really hard to change or update or add to existing rules without adding what's called supplements, where you add additional books to that kind of stuff. Well, in my case, I want to be able to have a lot more flexibility as far as rule changes are concerned. So the game itself, the basic rules of the game will exist in a form that is living. It's gonna be a digital form of the game that you can download and you can read through, and I can go back and I can update rules as needed or add to rules as needed without having to put entire supplements out. On top of that, over time, like over the course of a year, I will put out a ton of additional content for the game, including new adventures, new items, new crazy augmentations and weapons, and just stuff like that. Like new stuff for people who want to play the game to have. And if you are someone who wants to buy a physical copy of the game, my plan is to do a special edition of the rule book and have that as a physical copy. But, making sure that if you want to check on updated stuff, you would be able to go online. And if you have that physical book, you could just go and, see all of the new rules. So it is kind of a new idea, and I'm excited to, explain how I want to do that and the method of that I'm going to go with. However, again, I'm going to leave that for the announcement video. So my game is currently called Synthetic Neon, but that name is subject to change. Synthetic Neon ties in with a lot of the systems in the game world, and that will make more sense in the future. However, the game world itself is a very bright and vibrant, colorful cyberpunk future contrasted with a lot of darkness, which creates quite a bit of storytelling opportunities, and it also sets you up for a very visually cool cyberpunk future if you're into, doing art or doing any kind of design stuff. So before I sat down to do any kind of design with the game, I set out to create a set of guidelines that I wanted to stick by, and I have stuck by through and through with the design of my game. And the first one is that I want the game to be very easy to learn and have logical rules. Whereas you could sit with one of your friends who's never played a tabletop game before, or maybe you're someone who's never played a tabletop game before, and you could very easily and quickly learn the game within a couple minutes and start playing. That's the goal. It's not to have you sit there reading through a rule book for an hour or hours on end, creating characters and, really digging deep into the systems. The goal is to get you playing the game immediately and start with that. So it is really quick to make a character. There's not a whole heck of a lot that you need to do. You can make a character within a few minutes, or if you really wanted to get in depth, you could spend like 20 minutes creating a character if you really wanted to. But the idea is to get you really quickly into the game, start playing, and understanding the basic rules because they are logical. The game is set within our world. It is just future Earth. So things that make sense to you now as to how the world works make sense in the game because that's what the rules of the game are based around. But on top of that, I also wanted to create a game that had a massive amount of depth and customization. So you could create whatever kind of character you wanted, but that you, in the process of playing your character, were always making really tough decisions. So let me get into that briefly. In Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, there are really cool moments sometimes when you level up. I say sometimes because not all the time. Sometimes you level up and you just roll new health and you're like, well, I don't get anything at this level, and you have to wait another month before you level up again to get something cool. That's not a fun feeling. What I really like about Dungeons & Dragons is when you do level up and you do get really cool stuff. But on top of that, you have to make a choice. You have to sit there and choose whether you take one spell or another, or you go to one kind of domain or another for your character. And I wanted to recreate that on a regular basis within my game. So that led me to the Helix system. The Helix system is kind of like a talent tree system. And if you've played games like Mass Effect 2, 3, or Andromeda, this will look very, very familiar to you. It is a linear tree that goes from left to right and has 6 points in it. And at each of those points, you can choose from 2 different skills. And it increases in experience cost as you go along the trees. These skills that you can choose from tend to be very contrary to each other. So that way you're kind of having to make very specific choices for your character. So for example, you may have a character that is able to dash 10 yards. Well, that may be altered in one of the helix trees to being, a longer dash, or making it so your dash remains the same, but when you dash through another character, you deal damage to them. So you can make it a damage dealing ability, or you can make it so you're even more mobile. So that's kind of the idea behind it, is you have these skills that are contrary to each other that cause you to make a choice about your character anytime you purchase one of them. And this isn't happening every time you level up. This is happening anytime that you want to go and spend experience points, because you, at the end of every session, will get on average about 5 experience points. And with those experience points, you can go and purchase one of the skills in the trees. You don't have to wait until you level up. This causes your character to have moments like you do in D&D. You know, if you level up in D&D, you get these really cool moments where you get to go and choose all this stuff, and it's exciting. Well, that is something that you now get to do on a rather regular basis. You're not always going to be able to have the experience points at the end of a session to get the skills you want. You do sometimes need to save up for them, but you're never really going to go without a session where you could get something, because there are many different skill trees you can go down. You're never going to find yourself in a situation where you've gotten, you know, all of the beginning skills and everything else is too expensive and you have to wait like several sessions in order to get something else. You're always going to have something that you could get if you wanted to, which gives you that feeling of leveling up from D&D, the exciting feeling on a more frequent basis. And it's more rewarding because you're being able to cause changes to your character and the way that they're playing on a frequent basis that isn't, you know, massive and game changing. It's just enough to keep your character constantly interesting. And on top of that, you have weapons and armor and crazy, you know, gadgets like drones and stuff that you could customize fully as well. Not with the Helix system, but with different modifications and upgrades, which leads you to having a game that is extremely easy to learn. You can jump right in if you've never played a tabletop game before and start playing and not have to worry about any of that depth. You could just start playing, and then once you've played a bit, you understand the game, then you can kind of get into, okay, I want to customize my character. I've got some experience to spend now that we've played. How do I want my character to play? And you don't have to sit there reading through a rule book for like an hour. Instead, you jump right in, you play, you start to understand the game, and therefore you can then go dive into the depth if you want to. And that just gives you a really cool sense of character customization within a game that is not going to cause you to, you know, lose days and days of your life just trying to understand how it all works. And there's one last rule set that I want to talk about before the announcement video where I get super in depth with everything about the game. And that is, my game has an optional rule for being an RPG with a defector. And if you've ever played anything like Dead of Winter, for example, where you have these players that you're playing with, but you don't really know if anyone is a traitor or not. You could get into a game of Dead of Winter and have no traitor at all, or you can get into a game of Dead of Winter and have a traitor that is out to end the game for everybody. That is their goal, and that is determined at the start of the game randomly. Well, in my game, you could do it various different ways. I have rules for how this all sets up, or you could just not do it at all and just have this rule completely removed from the game and you don't have to worry about it. But if you wanted to, you could play as an RPG with a defector, which means that one of the players in your group is trying to work against the party in a way that isn't ruining the fun for the party, but is creating a lot of suspense and a lot of tension in the party. Because you never really know, if you're using this rule set, if someone is a defector, if someone is a bad person that is trying to work against you. So how does this work within the context of the system in the game? Well, there are synthetic creatures, they're, you know, with a man-made body, but are completely AI that exist. In fact, they were banned in my world. They're not a thing that legally you can have in the world of synthetic neon. There was an event long ago that caused the World Congress to essentially say, no, these are not allowed to be made anymore. It's kind of like if you think of cloning nowadays. Cloning is a very interesting idea that people want to explore, but at the same time, there's a lot of regulation against because there's some ethical concerns there. Same thing goes for synthetic creatures within my game, synthetic humans in particular, where it is a man-made body with an artificial intelligence thrown in that can learn and adapt and essentially be a living being all on its own without ever having to be born. And that is a very scary concept, but it is something that happens a lot in the cyberpunk worlds. Well, if you're playing the RPG with a defector rule set, one of your players in the party may be a synthetic character. You're not going to be able to tell the difference whether or not they are a synth or not. The only thing that you'll be able to do is watch their actions, and if they have a different goal than you, a very different goal than you, then that may, cause some tension within the group. But you never really know if they're a synth. Maybe they just have different goals for their character. So it's really cool. It's really fun. And you may go years in a campaign without ever knowing that your best friend has been playing a synth the entire time and secretly, has been trying to murder you without anybody else noticing. I can't wait to go into more detail on how all of this works and more detail on my game, but you're just going to have to wait until I officially announce it and launch it. That will happen at the same time. It will not launch as like a full version, the finished version of the game. It will be going into beta because we're currently in alpha and we've been testing pretty rigorously, and the game is a lot of fun to play. I can't stress that enough. You're just going to have to, try it if you're into tabletop RPGs, and you'll kind of see how I've done the combat in a really cool and exciting way. Plus, it's cyberpunk. Who doesn't love cyberpunk? It's going to be very exciting to see what you all come up with. But when I do announce it and launch it, it will become a beta, and then from then, if you're interested in helping do playtests and stuff, we're going to create a community around the game where you can jump in, find other people online to play with, or try to get feedback on things for different kind of story beats that you're doing, and just basically have a community around the game already set up from the initial get-go. And obviously, if you're playing with friends in person and stuff like that, I would love to hear about your experiences about my game, because I would, love to look at it and help balance and adjust rules and add more things to it over time, because it is a living RPG. But that's the idea behind Synthetic Neon, and that's what I've been working on for the last year and a half pretty rigorously, which means I have been rather busy and the channel has fallen behind. So let me jump into some of the channel things that I'm going to change. So you've probably noticed that as of late, the channel has become quite stale. In fact, it's fallen into a pattern where I typically have anywhere from 3 to 4 playthroughs going on in the channel at any given time. But if you're not interested in those games, then you're not watching the content. You don't care. Even if you like me, and you're like, I want to see more stuff from Zen, but you're not interested in the games, you're just not watching that stuff. I totally know how it is. I have other people that I watch on YouTube that I do the exact same thing with. I'm really interested in the content creator, but they're just not creating the content that I'm interested in. And every now and again, I'll put out a series that, will draw certain people back and have other people leave because they're no longer interested in that. And I like to do a variety of different games. It's how we've always operated on the channel. That is going to continue, but it's not going to be the primary thing that is going to have you guys watching videos anymore. I want to do a lot. I want to do a lot more variety in a way that has more people interested in the content. And on top of that, I want to do more content that's interesting to me, because I am like an artist in a lot of ways. I really like creating things. I'm making my own game. I love doing the thumbnails and stuff for videos. I love getting creative and making videos. But at the same time, you kind of have to be passionate about the content you're making in order to have that passion filter through and make it a good creation. So for me, I am going to start doing more individual videos, not a video series on a game, but more videos just looking at games and talking about them. I get literally, I'm not even joking about this, I get on average 15 to 25 indie games a week that are sent to me, being like, hey, look at this game. Now, a good majority of those are pretty under my quality level that I would say that I enjoy, but many of them are really, really good. And I would love to get into checking out these indie games and talking about them and doing, maybe not a 15-minute video, but maybe a 30-minute video or a 45-minute video being like, check out this game, it's awesome. And that will allow you guys to discover new stuff that you may not know that you wanted. Or at the same time, it would just kind of give you a variety of content on the channel that isn't just these like 3 or 4 playthroughs that I have going on at any given time. On top of that, I want to get into more of guides. I've been really good at guides in the past, and it is a thing that I really enjoy doing. I have like this weird natural gift for teaching, and it tends to come through on those guides pretty easily. So for me, I want to get into certain games in the future and do a lot of guides for them. The primary upcoming example is Anthem. I am going to dive deep into Anthem, whether or not it's a good game, and I'm going to put a lot of time into it, I am sure. But with that said, I want to do a lot of guides for it. And I think I could do some quality guides for Anthem and even games like the Division 2 or any other, future multiplayer games. I considered starting this process with Fallout 76, but I haven't been able to pick up the game quite yet or have the time to jump into it. So I think if I did, those videos probably wouldn't have gotten a massive amount of views. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, if you're interested in Fallout 76, let me know, and I may pick it up anyways and do some stuff on it, because I think that game is really cool, and even though some people don't really like it, I think it is in my wheelhouse of games that I probably would enjoy. So I want to do more guide content, I want to do more specific content on different games, and get more variety of games up on the channel. But I am also, as you probably noticed with me making my own tabletop game, really passionate about tabletop games. And one of our series that we did in the past that we couldn't quite keep up with because of other people's commitments is the Star Wars RPG that we did. We did several episodes of it, and those have a lot of views, and people really enjoyed that. And I would love to do something like that again, whether it's my own game or it's Dungeons & Dragons or it's something like that. I would love to get into that, and I have a group of friends that would be interested in doing that on a regular basis and would be able to lock in on a commitment level to be able to do that for a regular series. So I would love to do that, but on top of that, I would love to just do general board games, and that's really hard to do when you don't have everybody living in one area, but thankfully Tabletop Simulator does a good job of doing that, and I've talked about this in the past of things that I wanted to do. Well, I feel like I'm ready to finally punch through and get that as a series going up on the channel, where not on a frequent basis because it would be a rather complicated series to make, but on a, maybe once or twice monthly series going up on the channel for, a long episode of me and some other people just playing through board games and being able to edit that and put that out in a way that makes it rather entertaining. That way, you're not only getting video games on the channel, and you're getting your 3 to 4 series, a sector, a quarter. I don't really know. It tends to, depending on what games I'm playing, they tend to go very long or kind of short. So you would get 3 to 4 series that you're watching regularly on the channel, and maybe you're interested in those or maybe you're not. But on top of that, you're getting some indie games. You're getting possibly a D&D type like RPG game going on the channel for a length of time. And then on top of that, you're also getting board games. That's kind of my goal for 2019, because I want to change up how the channel is functioning at the moment, because I feel like it's gotten really stale and I want to breathe new life into it, especially once I get my game going and getting that launched and it's not like the secret project I'm working on anymore, because then I can talk about that and I can make videos on that and make updates and, also be making money off of that, which means I can devote a lot more time to other things. So that's kind of my idea. If you have any additional things that you want to see on the channel, now is the time to let me know, because this is when, at the end of the year, I'm considering how I want to go about doing 2019. What I've presented is my idea, but if you guys have something that you want to see in particular, then that would be something that I would be interested in going back and doing, and doing what you guys want to see on the channel as far as series are concerned. I guess the best way to put it is, ideally, I don't want the channel falling into the rut that it has been in, where you're getting one type of content. I want to be able to have the flexibility to make any kind of video that I want and have it at a high quality. So the best example of this that's going through my head right now is I really love tabletop RPGs, obviously. And recently, I'm getting into minis, and I really want to start painting minis. So it would be pretty cool to do a video series of me painting minis and, not have it just like me sitting there for 2 hours just painting a single mini, but edit it down, obviously, and showing the process that I'm learning and going through that process of, getting better and making videos on that. Like, that would be also a really cool thing for me to do and something I would be massively passionate about. But those are my ideas. I don't want the channel having one type of content like it has lately, and I want to be able to vary it up quite a bit. On top of that, I am getting ready to launch my own game, and I have some other things that I'm also working on. So, there's a lot going on in my life right now. And with that said, December is going to be a really busy month for me. I'm going to be gone for the entire last half of it, and I won't be back for a while, but I'll have videos ready to go up that entire time I'm gone, so don't worry about that. But when it comes down to, my schedule, I'm a little overwhelmed at the moment, and I would love to get into doing more channel stuff because believe it or not, I do have the time for it. I just need to have a better direction for content that I'm creating. And if I'm super passionate about the content creating, then I can, put a lot more time into it without feeling like I'm just slogging through another playthrough on the channel, which is kind of how it's been feeling lately for me. And that's partly why I want to change it up. So if you have any ideas for things that you want to see, again, let me know in the comments. However, I have a game that I need to launch, and on top of that, I'm going to go learn quite a few board games just to have some in my pocket in case I do want to do a tabletop simulator series and get people playing in with that. But with all of that being said, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you want to continue to support the channel even more and help me out in my game development career that I've kind of started here, you can always head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/OSWguild and support us there and get some awesome things in return. But with that being said, we shall see you guys next time.